Okay, so I was thinking about your song, To Love, Serve, and Remember. So, love, yeah, we get that. Serve, we get that. Remember, what are we supposed to remember? Yeah. So I was thinking while you were singing the song, what are we supposed to remember? And I don't think it's remembering all the wrongs people have done to us, which is what we tend to remember. Yeah. We file those away. We have a nice little compartment in our mind of where we store everything mean that people have done to us, all the ways that the world has treated us unfairly, and all our fantasies of getting revenge. And I don't think that's what the song is encouraging us to do. You know, I think we remember the wrong stuff. I think what we're supposed to remember is to love and to serve. Okay? So that involves, I think, if we're going to remember it, you know, in Buddhism, the word remember is the same word as for mindfulness. Yeah? So mindfulness means, you know, in some contexts, remembering our object of meditation. But in other contexts, it means remembering our values, our principles, what is important to us, how we want to treat other people. And so therefore, I really recommend first thing in the morning when we wake up that we remember what is important to us. So I have a 3-stage thing that I do every morning as I remember. And the first one is to make an aspiration not to harm anybody that day. You know, not to harm them physically, not to harm them with my speech, not to harm by thinking harmful thoughts towards them. Not so easy to do, but try to remember it every morning. And then second is to try and remember to be kind to others in whatever big or small way that it is possible in a given situation. I'm not Mother Teresa, I'm not the Dalai Lama, but on the other hand, they don't encounter personally the people that I do. So we all have our own field in which we can plant seeds of compassion, seeds of tolerance, or seeds of bitterness, as was mentioned in the poem. And then the third part is in Buddhism we have this idea of bodhicitta. It's the aspiration to become fully awakened so we can be of the greatest benefit to other living beings. And so I think about that in the morning too, and make that my motivation for being alive. Okay. Usually our motivation for being alive is my pleasure. Yeah. How can I get pleasure? Precisely my pleasure now. Or to put it in another way, I want what I want when I want it. And that's usually how we live our life. And that doesn't work so well as a strategy for being happy. Because the more self-centered we are and focus on our own happiness, the less actually we're happy, because we're so easily offended. We regard everything in terms of ourselves, and we blame others for our problems. Yeah. So this self-centered attitude really is not working in our benefit. It's working against us. So I try and remember that every morning. You know, not to harm, to be kind as much as I can, and to increase my direction of wanting to be of great benefit to others, and therefore gaining the wisdom of how to do so. So that's just what I was thinking as we were chanting, singing the song. What I had thought of talking about when I came here is, and it fits very well in with that song, is to talk about respecting others. Because if we're going to love others, if we're going to serve others, and if we're going to remember our values so we can live by them, then the foundation of all of that is respecting others. If we don't respect others, there's no way we can love them or serve them or do anything except criticize them. And so I was thinking about respect a lot this week. It's, it's interesting because there's such a hoopla in the country. The last few days have been very entertaining, haven't they? Yeah? My goodness, we can't be separate from reading the news and what's the latest circus. Yeah? But in all this whole circus, what are we forgetting? We're forgetting to respect each other. And what has been brought out very much in this election period is the need that women have for not only equality, but also for respect. So this has been brought out very, very much in the past year of election circus. So not only the needs of women for respect, the needs of people of all faiths for respect, the needs of immigrants for respect, the needs to respect each other, even though we may have different ideas, different ways of doing things. And the thing is that respect is not something that can be legislated. Yeah. Respect is something that has to come from each one of us inside of our hearts. All the laws in the world cannot make us change what we feel inside. Only we can make us change what we feel inside. And so to be able to look at all other living beings equally, that's one of our values as a country, isn't it? At least that's what I was taught in 4th grade. Yeah, there's certain things that you learn in 3rd and 4th grade that stick with you. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I actually, in 4th grade, I was not so smart. I thought when they say, what is it now? It just went out of my mind. All men are created equal. I thought men referred to everybody. Yeah, you did too. It took me a while to realize that men referred not to women, but just to men. It referred to white men, not men of any other color. And it referred to rich white men. They were all created equal. And the rest of us, I don't know. Yeah, because we've had to do many, many things in our country to change that so that men actually meant everybody in the country. So we've done the legislative part, but we need to do the part in here, to really respect others. And, I'm sure all the women will agree with me that the way speech is often used is not respectful of women, and that how damaging that is, not just to women, but to the men as well, and to all of society. Because as soon as we denigrate one group, we're setting in motion this movement of now I have the power to push around anybody. And I don't think in our heart of hearts that's what we want to do as human beings. When you think of the times when you felt most peaceful and most satisfied in your life, wasn't it when somehow you were connecting with other living beings on a heart level? Was the happiest you felt in your life when you were looking at women as sex objects? Or looking at immigrants as people who are intruding on your security? Or looking on people of different races as inferior? Were those the happiest moments in your life? I think when we look inside, our happiest moments are when somehow all that blah blah has disappeared and we're able to relate to another human being simply as one human being to another. Not as superior and inferior. Not as, different roles that we play, but just as human beings who are trying to make our lives meaningful, as human beings who are trying to solve more problems than we create. Maybe that's something we need to remember, isn't it? To solve more problems than we create. So how do we cultivate respect for others? Respect is it's a tricky word because we often confuse respect with fear. I do a lot of work with inmates in prisons, and there you can really see how respect and fear are conflated and confused. Because we often think respect means I'm a little bit afraid of you, so I watch what I say, so I don't get in trouble. That's not respect. That's being afraid of somebody. That's not respecting them. Respect is when we can really see other people's good qualities, when we can see that they have the same human needs that we do, that they fight the same human problems that we do. The problems look different superficially, but they all boil down to the same thing. We're all just trying to make it and stay alive in some way. So respect is seeing that people have human rights, that they are valuable simply because they're alive. It doesn't matter whether they're healthy, whether they're sick, whether they're disabled, whether they're not, whether they're Republican, whether they're Democrat. Dare I say that these days? Yeah, that we should respect all of them. Of course, we can acknowledge people have different problems and that people get tangled up in their negative emotions and create problems for themselves and for the rest of us. We can talk about the problems. We can talk about the inappropriate actions and inappropriate speech. But behind all of that, there is a living being who just wants to be happy and not suffer. And on that basis, develop respect. And respect them, not just because they're trying to be happy and not suffer, but respect them because each of them has some kind of inner beauty inside. For some people, their inner beauty is very buried, very deep. Yeah. And they do many things to push away our respect, our love. But they still have that inner beauty. They still have that potential. In Buddhism, we call it Buddhist potential, Buddha nature. Yeah. The possibility, the innate potential of our mind to become fully awakened, because the defilements are not the nature of the mind, and our bad actions are not the nature of our mind. And so when we really can have some sense of that, then we can also really respect others. Okay? Not in the sense of fearing them, because really what there is to fear already exists in us. Other people's anger we don't need to fear. Our own anger is extremely dangerous. Other people's greed we don't need to fear. Our own greed is horrible and very damaging. Why? Because with our own anger, with our own greed, we act and we harm others. In harming others, we're harming ourselves. This is the whole idea of karma. Yeah. That the energy, the actions that we put out in the universe is what boomerangs back to us. Yeah. We cannot control other people's anger and greed. If we could, the last week probably wouldn't have happened. Yeah. Only we can control our own anger and greed. And that's what we need to be focused on and work on. Because we can see that what one human being does can affect a lot of people. So if we love, serve, and remember our values, it affects a lot of people. If we disrespect others, if we ridicule them, if we think that they're inferior and don't give them the same rights as we have, we harm ourselves and we harm them. And at the end of the day, we're the ones who have to live with ourselves, don't we? Yeah, other people can praise us, other people can criticize us. None of that really matters, because what matters is we know ourselves, we know our own motivations, and we have to be comfortable inside with who we are and how we treat others. And if we're not, it doesn't really matter how much praise and reputation and wealth and whatever we have. Yeah, because we're born alone, we die alone. How we feel about ourselves is in our own heart. Okay? So that's why His Holiness the Dalai Lama always says, if you want to be selfish, be wisely selfish and take care of others. Because if you take care of others, you feel better about yourself. if you take care of others and are sensitive and respectful of them, then you live in a place with happy people, which is much nicer than living in a place with unhappy people. Isn't it? So we can treat the people around us well and make them happy, and then we live in a pleasant place. We can treat them poorly, put them down in an attempt to get things for ourselves, our old friend of my happiness now. But we wind up actually quite miserable at the end of the day. So the real thing, I think, is to see our own potential, take it seriously and use it, and see the potential in others, take that seriously and respect them. So with that, I think I'll stop. Thank you.